Hey, good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Mike.
Did everybody hear me okay, right? I'll go back and forth on it, I guess, with this. So it's a pleasure to be here. I thank you John, for inviting me to speak. You and everybody else in your group. I really appreciate it. Good to be here, even though it's not the greatest day, but so be it. We can't plan the weather, can we? So what I wanted to talk about today was a lot of the energy efficiency type programs that we have for commercial customers. And we do have a myriad of programs, probably something for everyone, I would think. And what I wanted to do was go through the programs, go through some examples, give everybody a sense for, what we have available, how we can take advantage of them, and then also start saving money for your business, your clients, whomever. So that's the general idea, the framework where we want to start. But at the beginning is, I think everybody knows, and I'm not going to belabor this, I think everybody knows we are part of PSEG, a holding company. So it's PSEG LI, Long Island. And we also have PSEG. That's the utility that's based out of Newark and serves a few million plus customers, electric and gas. So there are, it's two different entities essentially, but we're under the PSEG, Public Service Enterprise Group umbrella, and that's where we stand. All right, so we're a subsidiary strictly for Long Island, newly created for Long Island. So as everybody knows, National Grid is no longer serving LIPA. LIPA has been changed a great deal, a lot of transformation, small group, still based out of, for the most part, Uniondale. But PSEG really has a lot of the day-to-day authority to run the distribution company as its own. So that means, with respect to budgeting and forecasting, and obviously the system. So the distribution, transmission system, etc. So there's a lot more, I guess, effort that's going to be put into maintain the system, and a lot more authority to run the system now. So it's a big difference from where we were with LIPA and National Grid interacting with one another. So they just kind of gave a lot more autonomy, essentially, to PSEG, and it includes the last line there, which is the energy efficiency and renewable programs, which is what we want to talk about this morning. All right, so that is the main difference there. And here's the deal. For these programs, essentially what it's all about is reducing our peak demand. We have a large peak demand, over 5,000 megawatts, climbing essentially on Long Island. And what happens is, what we want to try to do is defer the costs of building different types of power plants and refurbishing the existing power plants, whether it's peaking units, whether it's a new plant. I mean, you can imagine the problems with trying to site a new plant, get that up and running, the costs associated with it nowadays. Obviously, it's not the best way to work it. So what are we going to do? We're looking at other ways to do it, and that is through programs like this, energy conservation, energy efficiency, demand reduction type programs. What that does is reduce the peak over time and eventually at least forego the need for, in the short term, for power plants, and maybe even in the long term, as we'll see later on in the slides I have. The changing utility is going to be something new, that we have to really kind of keep an eye on, but we're going to be changing that, how we reduce demand, in customers' essentially usage of bills over time. So that's the main thrust of this. Demand reduction, help save some money, obviously grow business by doing so. All right, so it's a nice formula, and this is kind of what I was looking at. You can see there's different types of methods to serve the customer with supply on the supply option side, and they really run the gamut from natural gas combined cycle power plants to gas peaking units, which we've done. There's geothermal in there, there's solar PV, and all the way on the left, what becomes really kind of the most efficient when you take everything into account, including tax credits and incentives, really looking at energy efficiency as being a great way to reduce demand and reduce energy costs as well for, in this case, Long Island. And this is a kind of a snapshot, taking a look at different supply options. Obviously, it's not one silver bullet. You know, it's a myriad of things, and that's what's going to happen as you go, you know, depending on the needs of the area and depending on, obviously, the needs of the customer, it's going to change. And it's going to be a combined kind of effort. But the point being is that energy efficiency is a great way to do it, good starting point. It makes sense all around. I think everybody can probably agree on that. I mean, we've all kind of taken part in it to some degree, I would think, whether it's at home or in the business, and you can see that it really does kind of make sense. So I just wanted to touch on that as well and let you see that. Let's see what this was. Here we go. Okay, so the energy efficiency program is pretty much just as on the commercial end. We have residential efficiency programs, and we also have renewable programs as well. So it's a really, you know, a pretty wide variety of type of programs. Right now, overall, we're looking at probably about a $94 million budget for everything, right? And we try to have our goals set out to reduce electric demand by about 60 megawatts. That's just for 2014. I'm happy to report that we have hit that number, and we're going to probably reduce it even further. So that's 60 megawatts that you know, we're going to attain for years to come. As people reduce it, hopefully that stays, and that just compounds every year.
And Mike, what does that represent, 60 megawatts? Is that 10%? Is it 20%?
It's a little more than 10%. If we have about, you know, let's see, 5,000 peak, you know, so it's a little bit more, I'll say 12 maybe in that range, and that's just the 1 year, not the compounding. You're looking at probably about close to 4,000, maybe even 4,200, just in the commercial energy efficiency program alone, of customers taking advantage of the program. So 4,200, 4,000, 4,500, okay, yeah, you know how many? We have 100,000 electric accounts. So there's a lot of people out there not taking advantage of this program and the money that's out there.
And
that's
the 90 million represents
4%.
what? 90 million represents what? Different types of incentive plans, energy?
90 million is the whole budget, which
whole
includes residential, commercial, and renewables.
Well, that was just for 2014, right?
Right, just for 2014. Yeah, that's the budget to do all the work, essentially. So that's the whole encompassing budget, which we try to always decrease. So right now it's about 90 million. So we cut some out.
And what do you plan for 2015?
Yet to be decided. It's got to be voted on by the LIPA board on December 17th, but we're in the same ballpark.
Okay.
About 90, I'll say.
I got a question, Mike.
Yes.
Going back a couple of years ago, you're really being specific to that 10-year program of that $984 million. Was that part from that LIPA program?
Correct.
Is that right? That's kind of where this all comes from.
That's correct, and that's really, you know, where they started. And what we do is we modify it every year anyway, depending on the needs, depending on the type of program and whatnot. But we're trying to hold to, I don't know, I'd say around the 90 million mark, give or take, for all the different programs. Again, residential, commercial, and efficient renewables. All right.
And it's looking like the same for 2015.
Yeah, it's looking actually pretty good. Yeah.
Hey, Mike, I'm going to oversimplify the situation, so correct me where I'm wrong.
Okay.
But for argument's sake, let's say everybody changed their bulbs to LED bulbs in the office buildings and home,
Yep.
and we took the demand from here and brought it down to here.
Yeah.
It makes more sense for PSG to give back through incentives and energy efficient programs, tens of millions instead of spending whatever it's going to cost $1 billion to build a new power plant.
Absolutely.
Well, that's why they gave out the $984 million.
So that's
What it is. It's a least cost alternative, and it's also a way of getting more people involved in that process as well.
So you
Have
would
more
expect
touch points on
in
it.
15 and 16 to have at least a repeat of the budget,
Without
if
question.
not better.
And you'll see one of my last slides is actually going better. So
Okay.
yes,
Vinny, that's for you, Vinny.
yeah,
All right.
yeah. They'll have some interest in that. So these are the four main pillars of basically what the commercial program is all about. You have the rebates itself. Then we have an energy assessment program that actually, well, I'll go into more detail, but has somebody take a look at your building and whatnot, make some recommendations. We have a technical assistant program and a small business direct install, which probably it's a limited type of program only for very load-constrained areas. It might not apply to many in a room, but you never know. It could, it could. So here's the, here's the rebates.
We're talking about
Yep.
that energy assessment,
Yeah.
okay? Because that's
I'm
kind
gonna
of,
expand on that too.
you know, it's a typical tenant just is being barraged by all kinds of different choices, et cetera.
Yeah.
And, you know, what you and I were discussing is that the PSEG is kind of a one-stop shop to be able to help evaluate what the issues are.
Yeah, and that's how we work it, because we have account executives that handle certain market segments, and they handle obviously the types of buildings within those segments, for instance, schools versus office buildings, you know, versus whatever, something else, governmental buildings, etc. So we have different types of executives that handle that, but we also have engineers on staff that are there to evaluate some things as well, if need be. We're not going to do engineering studies. Let me get in, you know, we'll get into that in a little bit. But we do help get through the process and make it a little bit less cumbersome, and you know, help out where we can. So, but let me just start with some of the items, essentially the measures that are available. And keep in mind that, you know, these are on our list in terms of programs that we have different rebates for, different levels, but different rebates for. However, for the most part, what's really being utilized are the lighting rebates and air conditioning, HVAC rebates. Those are like 1 and 2 in terms of being the most popular. But we also have, you know, for large buildings, something like this, we have chillers that could be, have rebates for. That comes in handy. Obviously, if you have compressors or anything like that in a type of building, you know, that's all something. If you can get to, you know, more efficient type of compressor. A cool roof. So if you're redoing your roof, somebody's redoing a roof and they put in what's called a cool roof or energy efficient roofing, that's going to be also available. I've seen roofing combined with solar. What's that?
Any kind of rebate for a green roof?
A green roof? It's not that I'm aware of, but you know what? And I touch on it right there in the bottom, the last bullet. I never say never. Custom rebates are available for what's not on the menu. So which means if you have ideas or something that you think is energy efficient and worthy of maybe a rebate, what we do is we try to take it in-house, we look at it, and have some engineers evaluate it and determine if it's eligible, number one, and number two, if it is eligible, what we can rebate it for. So there's always something in. I like that piece because, you know, it's not like we're evaluating R&D. So I don't want, you know, it's not something that's going to be available in 10 years from now. But if something's available, not on our menu, like I say, it does make sense energy-wise, savings-wise, then we are open to taking a look at it. So keep that in mind on everything, all right? Kitchen equipment, believe it or not, electric, you know, kitchen equipment, it's still out there. I haven't seen one rebate on it, but it's available, and you never know. So I'd like to mention it just in case. And then obviously, you know, variable frequency drives, et cetera. So there's a lot in the mix is what I'm trying to point out here with this slide. So if obviously buildings have so many different types of end uses and equipment and whatnot, so something's here.
What's under variable frequency drives?
Well, it's motors, it's drives that control a lot of sometimes,
How they
you know,
stop
HVAC.
motors and how they are.
Yeah, HVAC type motors, pumps,
Okay.
chiller pumps, turn, you know.
Okay.
So there's a lot of possibilities where we can, you know, control that better instead of on-off kind of thing.
All right.
And you can get incentives for that as well. So it helps. You know, look, it doesn't pay for the new equipment per se, but some of these rebates are pretty lucrative, and when that they could do a lot, or going a long way and paying for material for sure, we're getting close to that. And depending on what the labor costs are, you know, you may have a combined, you know, material and labor cost, and the rebates can go a long way eating up a lot of that cost, you know. Like I said, I'm not making promises that we're not here to pay for it all. Okay, so these are just a nice couple of pictures that I had taken, but I just want to show you, this is a typical, this happens to be, okay, an auto repair stuff, but they have metal halides, old inefficient units, they have the old, you know, T12 fluorescents hanging around. The light quality is so-so, and the distribution is even worse. And then these are, you know, the typical 2x4s that we've all seen, know, and love. And what's next to it, it's hard to see in this slide, but to the right, there's actually another 2x4. What I wanted to point out, that I've seen so many of those, that's a lens that's filthy, and the lamps in there are actually on, but not burning too well. So there's a lot of energy being used there, and that thing, and I don't think there's a lot of light output coming out of that. But I think a lot of people in this room can attest to they've seen that before. You know, that's not like, you know, a rare event, that because of, you know, disrepair or low maintenance or whatever, you're really, you know, burning a lot of electricity and not getting a whole lot of light output, you know. So what you can do is we can change to different types of LEDs. This is just one type, there's so many, but that even look nicer in my mind is 2x4 fixtures, and they do the job for so much less wattage, and this is another type, strip type lighting LED. But here's an example, give you a little sense for what we're dealing with. This takes an office building, maybe a 10,000 square foot building, that breaks it up into a room, and this analysis looks at about, I don't know, 4,500 square feet, 3,100 operating hours. And what it does is it says, okay, the original fixtures, you had 40 of them, you had 43 lamp, 40 watt 2x4s like we just saw. All right, so we're going to take those 2x4s and we're going to change them out to a 2x4 LED. Now we went from 151 original watts per fixture down to like 40s, you know, like 46 or whatever. So now you're reducing all that, plus your ballast loss, etc. It's all in there. And what you have is essentially a payback of this, in this case, about a little over 2 years. Now, this is actually a conservative estimate. The main piece of this is obviously what's your material and labor. If you can reduce both of those, which you can usually do off of what I have here, because I said, again, I was trying to be conservative, that you can get that under 2 years. We've seen that a lot. And that's, I would say that the norm is probably 1 3/4 to 2 in a lot of cases. On a switch like that. So not only do you get new efficient lighting, you get much more light output, you're going to get a quick return on investment, and it really pretties up, like I say, the fixture look as well.
You know, we typically see in a lot of lighting projects, I don't sell lighting, like I said, we're an engineering company,
But lighting power density, wattage per square foot is very, very important, as well as, you know, removing fixtures. And so when you relate that, Mike, to the labor cost, right?
Yep.
If you're gonna take out 100 fixtures, you could possibly put back, and I'm just using a round number
Right.
here, 70 fixtures, right?
Yep.
So a lot less circuitry, a lot less manpower,
And
a
they
lot
last
less
longer.
labors, and you'll have a greater efficient lighting, so
Yep.
that's very, very important, and that also helps with the financial incentives.
Yeah, I mean, the
Federal, excuse me.
Yeah, no, but the length of time that they're around and burning pretty bright is, you know, I'm talking about, depending on how many hours, but you're looking at, you know, at least, you know, 10, 20, maybe 30 years on some of these things, and that's a conservative estimate, believe it or not.
That's what I was gonna ask you
Yeah.
about. Do your calculations take into account the cost of maintenance that you
No.
save on this?
No,
Okay, so
because
it's
it's so
really
very,
up to you.
that is such a
Like,
big, and that's
it
a
could be
real
9
number.
months
That's
in
right.
some cases.
And it's real because they do last so long. So, and that's also in that little payback analysis, again, simple payback. It doesn't take in Charlie Goulding's tax incentives, which are huge. A lot of people, we leave that out, but that is not something to be left out. That is real and very available and should be taken into account, obviously. So that's why I say conservatively, you can get under 2 years in most of these cases, with the lights lasting pretty long.
And,
You know.
and after maintenance, you get the
Yes.
9 months, and
Yeah.
after Charlie, we get
That's
to
right.
work. They pay me.
Yeah.
That project is clearly gonna qualify for at least 60 cents a square foot.
There
It
you
might
go.
qualify for $1.80.
There you go.
What
That's
kind of
right.
HVAC is in the building.
That's right, which is huge. So that's what I'm saying, there's a lot, you know, and you put all these elements together, this is only one piece of the puzzle, but you put them all together and you really have something really nice to talk about. So, and that's, you know, like I said, a lot of the LEDs are like 50,000 hours, and that's conservative.
And that's a lot for a typical
Conservative.
building owner to digest.
I know.
understand.
That's why
It's
you're so
overwhelming.
right, Jimmy. You gotta really, kind of lay it out.
And that's
go
why
through
we
it.
hear so many different stories about the different values. I mean, one guy says 10,000, another guy says 5,000, another guy says it's free.
Right.
I mean.
And that's where we try to come in, that's where we try to come in and take a look at it. We don't want to critique and go through proposals per se, but we want to at least help guide the decision maker through the process, through the proposals, give them a sense for, plus minuses on it, so that at least they have some kind of sense for, okay, this makes sense, or this might not make sense for my building, however, it's still valid, but it might not make sense here. Things like that. We try to work and try to clear up some of that.
That's why I called you, because I was like, what
Yeah.
are all these guys talking about?
Right, exactly. And you get a lot of different pitches, and that's just the way it is, especially in the energy world. This is just, I wanted to mention, we do also, we have to do pre-inspection, so before any work is committed, I just want to mention this so that people don't miss out on it.